Yo, it's that time again. Another episode of Bleav in Kentucky, Bleav Podcast Network, alongside the UK legend 00 Tony Delk. My name is Vinny Hardy. What's up, TD?
Vinny, man, it's all good, man. I'm excited about, just what's happening in the sports world. NBA getting ready to have this little these play-in games. I'm excited about that. But I tell you what, we didn't get a chance to talk about last time. We didn't get a chance to talk about how our lady volleyball Cats won them a national championship. If I'm not mistaken, from what I've heard, it was the first one ever in the history of the SEC. Is that true?
Yeah, they set the pace. They got to the Final Four and stuff, and they get out of the hump and got it done. They didn't just get satisfied with the Final Four. They
right.
said, here we're gonna go ahead and handle business and bring the whole thing home. And they took Texas down, man, and brought that trophy back to Lexington, baby.
And I think that's what usually, it's funny you say that too, because normally, teams, the goal when to start the season, whether it's hockey, football, basketball, volleyball, baseball, we can go on and on about, when they get to the semis or to the final teams, is that certain teams are satisfied and they always give the edge to the team that's previously have won, coach who has won a championship. And for players, we're just happy to get there, and, I want to reflect going back to when I went to my first Final Four in 1993. I was excited. It was a great time to be the Final Four teams left in college basketball. And, just that whole weekend, that whole experience was an experience of a lifetime. I was like, man, this is what college basketball is about. And I know those people who haven't been to a Final Four, you get there, sometimes you're just satisfied, happy that we're the final team, but you don't think about winning it. So even when we went back in 1996, I had already experienced that, so I was like, man, I'm on a different mission here. I'm on a mission to win and, to cut down the nets and, not only just say we made it to the Final Four and that's so great to say you have a Final Four t-shirt with the four teams that were there, to be a part of history, you got to win it. And that's what, our volleyball team was able to do. They just wasn't satisfied with, being one of the top teams in the country. They went there with the mission. And I think when you go with a mission, if everybody's focused, definitely the coaches, they just not satisfied with, when they come in and give you that pregame speech, let's not be happy to be here. Let's go out there and win it. And the players feed off of, the energy of that coach. If that coach is relaxed and, you can kind of feel that presence that they have when they're talking to you. And then you have those coaches that is tension, it's like they come down, it's like, man, the game plan is changed. They don't want to talk and they're kind of moody. Those are the coaches that when they get there, they don't win because they're too uptight.
And with Craig Skinner, he's been there, I think, since 05, 06.
I remember Skinner when I was on Coach Cal's our staff. He's been there for a minute, man. I'm looking at him like, is that still the same coach?
He talked about the thing that stood out to me. He's made the NCAA tournament every year that he's been at Kentucky, but he's been building the program, getting it to where you can actually contend for a title. He was talking about how when he first got there, there were, 50, 60 people in the gym. You can hear the volleyball echoing off the floor during the matches. And now the crowds that come to watch him, the support they're getting, he said, call me crazy, but he's talked to Mitch Barnhart. He said, I think we can get volleyball where it's a revenue sport, the way you continue to grow.
Right.
From nothing to where he's gotten it. He said, it's not crazy to think that we can make this into a revenue sport. So that's just wow.
Well, I think also just seeing how long he's been there, normally coaches tenure who haven't, and I'm not saying, volleyball is a little bit different. There's not as much pressure on a volleyball coach, compared to, college football, college basketball, and at some university baseball, it's huge there, but, they can kind of stay in a position. They still get to the NCAA tournament, winning games, and they're competitive. They have a winning record. Like you can keep those jobs for 25, 30 years probably, because no one is really checking on volleyball. It's like, oh, let's go check on volleyball and make sure that, if we haven't made it to a national championship game or Final Four, we need to look at firing this coach. So I think, and I'm just speaking because I don't know, I don't think it's as much pressure because, it's not one of those, as you said, revenue sports. It's bringing in millions of dollars, So when you're bringing in millions of dollars in like a Alabama, us in basketball, even our football revenue, just the conference itself, football conference brings in hundreds of millions of dollars. And, but to go out and recruit those players, when you're not one of the top elite teams in the country, and it's like, okay, how can we build a brand when no one in the SEC has ever won a national championship? It's like, okay, so how realistic can a coach be when it comes down to you go and recruit these girls and the top players in the country? Yeah, we're going to win a national championship. They look at you like, y'all conference haven't won a championship. Yeah. So how do you think that you're going to possibly win a championship? But now he has a great selling pitch when he goes out there now, when you have actually done it. And, it just lets you know that it is a process. And so many ADs and presidents don't give coaches enough time. But also, I think the coaches are looking for the next best job. When you are, like when I look at Coach K, Izzo, Boeheim, and, guys like that, they have been lifers at one school and just have really sacrificed and given so much to that school. And I think those are the coaches that you see are successful and they're able to have players that return to the program as assistant coaches. And, they're still building something like it's a family. But when you kind of like every 4 or 5 years or 6, 7 years, you changing coaches, the culture changes.
And there was the basketball connection, and with you having daughters, I was watching championship against Texas. A couple guys you played against and crossed paths with in your NBA career were at the championship game. For Texas, Jermaine O'Neal's daughter played on their volleyball team.
Wow. And
then you had Avery and Maddie Skinner, whose dad is Brian Skinner, who was playing for Kentucky. So they were going against each other. Brian and Jermaine were both in the crowd there watching their daughters, championship game match. And Brian Skinner and his 2 daughters came out on top as Kentucky brought it home. So just cool to look dad, dad, girl, dad thing that both guys were there supporting their daughters.
Yeah, having a connection, man. I mean, in volleyball, I tell people it's amazing, how much, youth sports that you have so many young women playing volleyball, and my daughter started out playing and she played for like 2 or 3 years, and it's very competitive, very competitive. It's one of the, probably you look at scholarship, like how many scholarships do they have for volleyball players? I don't even know, it's a lot of research that needs to be done, but, I tell people that it's a sport that do give out scholarships. Now, you have to, of course, probably have played, probably middle school to high school and, probably a club team. But, it's a sport that brings out athletes. You'll see some basketball players because of, the ability to jump and timing. Those basketball players have done really well on the volleyball side for women. But it's just great seeing that, what Coach Skinner has done with that program, and just being there for so many years and not just being satisfied. It does take time, man, to get to that national championship and be able to win it. I always think about, when as John Wooden started winning, national championship, he wasn't the youngest guy, you know what I'm saying? And reading his book, they had considered firing him. They was like, man, this dude not getting the job done. And he started winning them as he was older. And, when we look at the landscape of college basketball right now, with so many coaches, who are, I'm not going to say on the 18th hole, but we do have a few on the 18th hole. Yeah. And one of them was Roy Williams. He decided, he was like, listen, when I'm not enjoying this and it's not exciting to me anymore, that's when it's time to step away. And it takes, I think it's always a tough decision, when you've done something for 25, 30 years, that's all you know is basketball, recruiting, and having connection to the kids and their families. And, it's really hard to walk away. So when I look at a Coach K, a Boeheim, I'm like, man, these dudes are in their 70s, man. It's like they're still going, you know what I'm saying? But at some point in time, they're going to have to retire, and who's going to be the next person to take over, one of these top Power 5 jobs in the country. So it's going to be interesting, even as North Carolina hired Hubert Davis, was that, he paid his dues. He came back and, he was, I want to say, I got to see when he started. He might have been on the assistant coaching staff when I was on Coach Cal's staff, maybe in 2011, 2012, if we can go back that far. But, what was really positioned himself to be a head coach at some point in time. And I think that's where a lot of people, when it comes to paying your dues, it's like, man, I got to wait. You don't know when Earl Williams is going to retire. If he's in his early 60s, and let's say you want to be the next head coach, and you're in your 40s, like, man, this dude might coach another 15 years. Am I willing to wait that amount of years, to become a head coach? And you have some guys that are comfortable and cool with being, the head coach, the head assistant, first assistant coach, second assistant coach. Some guys are fine with that. I think you got to find your niche, what works best for you. Everybody's not meant to be the leader of a team, but there are a lot of really good assistant coaches out there.
And the recruiting changes, the transfer portal, that's what Roy looked at and was like, I'm not gonna change my game the way I do things. The landscape is changing. He said, I'm gonna go and step on out.
Yeah.
So
because I thought he was struggling, like even trying to get the one and dones. I think he had a couple of those guys. I think Harrison Barnes, like he had a group of guys, Marvin Wood. He had some guys that came and went, and so he hopped into it for a few years, you know what I'm saying? So he was like, okay, let me adapt to the one and dones, the guys that I'm only going to have for a year, and he ended up winning a couple of championships with those guys. But I think this transfer portal, even though you have made an adjustment to, the one and dones and getting the 5-star guys, you don't know it's just only going to be with your program for 1 year. This is something different. This is something different where you got to study these guys. Like, you got to have some intel on these players, as they decide to leave maybe a smaller school and, jump into the Power 5 conferences. And, so I think he was at that boiling point, like, man, I don't feel like doing this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know my assistant coach is going to do their job, but, as a head coach, you still got to give, the final decision on, who you're going to give a scholarship to, what player am I going to get that's coming from another program? How's he going to fit in, the chemistry? Like, when you have a different connection to the players that you've gone out and recruited, you know what I'm saying? Like, you've met their parents, you've been on the recruiting trails, watching them play. And not to say some of these guys transfer portal he's not familiar with, but when you go out and really spend, all the AAU season, high school season, texting, on the phone, talking to parents, talking to that player, you have a different connection. Not to say that you can't have a connection with that player coming from that transfer portal, but it's different. I think it's really different. And, there's so many players in this transfer portal. I know Kentucky lost a top recruiter. Some of that was probably because, Tony Barbie left. He had a connection with him. To me, it'd have been like if we went back when I came out and my connection was Billy Donovan. So let's say Billy Donovan took the Marshall job and I'm his top recruit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty much sure I would have followed him because he spent so much time, coming to Brownsville, sending me letters in the mail, calling me on the phone, coming to watch my AAU, my high school game. Like, he was invested. And it would have been hard for me to go there when no one else really was invested in me like he was. You know what I'm saying? So you always got to factor that in. Like, who is my connection when I go there? Most of the time, it's going to be that assistant coach.
And I was definitely wondering what your thought process would have been when you said you would have followed Billy to Marshall. We've been talking about the staff changes, and with Barbie and Justice leaving, I already talked about Coach O, pretty much done deal coming back. Chin Coleman let Illinois know that he was leaving, let Underwood know that he's probably leaving and coming to Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Miller, who was there at Illinois, you would think, well, maybe, Kentucky needs some point guards. Maybe he'll follow his assistant to Kentucky. Nope, he goes to LSU and Will Wade. So,
wow. You never know, man. Like I said, you never know. I mean, you gotta go. Because I'm gonna tell you this, and here's the thing about being a recruit and coming to Kentucky. It's a lot of pressure, man. And I remember Coach Cal, telling us that as we had one of our staff meetings, he said, Kentucky's not gonna be for everyone. It's gonna be a school that's gonna give you a lot of exposure. I'm gonna demand a lot out of you, and you got to come to compete every day. That's not everyone. This generation, sometimes they want it to be given to them. They want to work hard. They don't want to compete, for the position. They just want that position to be handed to them. And it's like, no, it's competition. You think when you get to the collegiate level, NBA, everybody's good. You get to college. I mean, this player that's locker right next to yours, he's the best player from his district region, best player from his state. Another guy right across, but he's the best player from his state. He's a 5-star player. You might have another player that played the same position that you. He's a sophomore or a junior now, and he's not gonna let no freshman come in. Like, dude, you got to compete. I'm not just gonna say, well, you know what, you're a top recruit, and I'm just gonna give you my position. It just doesn't work like that. And I think the sooner kids understand, and I was having this conversation with someone yesterday about AAU basketball, just how competitive it is, but also that even if kids can't play, they're going to go play for somebody's organization. And it's just the way the basketball world is right now. Whether you can play or not, it's like, oh, who cares? But, you're going to be on somebody's roster, because now kids and parents love as they say, I just want the experience of being on a team, and traveling. But I'm like, your kid needs to develop. And even some of the players who have come to Kentucky in the past and current players, they have to develop and become, future NBA players. It just don't happen overnight. Although you might have been the best high school player, those college scouts and assistant coaches, they have intel on you. They know your strengths and weaknesses. They know what you can and cannot do. So their job is to, expose you in a certain way, but it's to make you feel like, you still have a lot to learn in this game. I'm not just going to let you think this game is easy when it's not. And I think that's the misconception that so many kids and parents have, is understanding how hard it is to be good at something when everyone else is good.
So a lot of the fan base is kind of worried because the how this roster is going to come together. There's a lot of bigs on the roster, not a lot of guards. Mintz put his name in the draft. He didn't sign with an agent, but he's exploring his options professionally to see what's going to happen. So right now, Kentucky's, they're Ty Washington is in there, but don't know whether he's going to decide or what he's going to do. Right now, you got Kellen Grady and Dante Allen as far as perimeter guys. Still waiting to see what Keon Brooks does. How do you think the roster comes together? The portal is still popping, but Kentucky's, and it's going to play out or it's not. It's going to come together. They're going to get players or it's not. I'm not worried, but Cal's definitely going to have O and Chin come in and get on it, because they got to get some guys in here. If they be on it. They've been going in right now. As soon as he as Tony left, he should have been like, dude, we got to get some guards in here. Because guards really, I mean, the way the game is now, you got to have good guard play. I mean, you got to have, and it's not always. It's great to go out there and get the 5-star, the guy that could potentially be a lottery pick. I mean, it's, of course, every coach would love to land that player. But sometimes, you got to look in state. You got to look in state for someone who can lead a team. Might not be your most athletic guy, but is he smart enough to run your team? Is he a leader on the court? Is he a winner? So I have to, if I'm some of these coaches, I'm changing my recruiting strategy when I look at what's going to work for my program. And I think where we're at right now is we have to really look at guys that can run
run the team, and not just someone that reclassifies and okay, he's a really good player. Let's bring him in, and he can't really run your ball team. Like I want to see from junior year to senior year, winning. Has he been a winner? Has he been leading his team? And when I go watch him, like, can he play with other good players? Can he get other guys to play at his level? Can he bring those guys along, and tell them what it takes to be a hard worker, and most of the time it's hard when you don't have that true leader at that position that hasn't won. Because I'm going to look at guys that's won a state championship. I'm like, okay, man, I know that dude he got to be tough, because Kentucky only gonna have one state champion,
Yeah.
Which is different from most other states. Our state we have, the classification champion, but when you have to go all the way through and you have to play to the final weekend and you're crowned like the best team in the state of Kentucky, I'm always looking at those teams and saying, okay, what player fits with us? I know he's a winner. He's gonna work hard. He's developed. He's gonna love being a Kentucky Wildcat. Like you got to get people that not gonna leave you all the time, but someone who love the journey. We got to find players that love the journey, want to develop, and it's okay to be a 3 or 4 year player. There are a bunch of 3 to 4 year players in the NBA right now that if we look at the rosters of all these players, everybody's not a one and done.
And I know you guys, your former teammates are keeping an eye out, as well as the state of Kentucky. You look at Reed Shepherd, Jeff's son. We don't know where he's going yet and all that, but he's getting his name known throughout the state.
Right.
He's going to be a junior this year. You talk about there'll only be one state champion in Kentucky. His team is yet to win their region. They haven't even made it to a Sweet 16 yet to go to Representative.
But it's funny you say that, because if you're a leader, and you got to look at the personnel around that player too. I mean, because even with myself, I was able to lead us to the state, take us to the state championship. I could get us out the region. I can get us out the district. I can get us out the region. We can win this. We can get to the sub-state. But when you get to the state, you need players around you. You know what I'm saying? Like a good coach is going to either allow you to get your points and take everyone else out, or say, we don't think they're good enough to win. With him, he can score. And these other guys, I don't think they can win. I don't think they can score enough points to beat us. And I was in that predicament at one point in time as a high school player. But when you have 3 or 4 guys that are dogs, they all are facilitated ball handlers. They play defense. They understand the game. So look at when I see it as a coach, I'm looking at his personnel. Okay, well, maybe it's gonna be tough, but if you can't get out your own district and region, like I knew I was good enough as an individual player to get us out the district. I'm like, okay, they can't stop me in the district. Region, okay, all right, it'll be a little tougher. Each round gets tougher. Mm-hmm. But going back to the winning is, let's put you with some good players. Because great players, whether it's they're the best player, they know how to play with other good players around them. We all know how to come together, and make this work chemistry-wise. And I think that's what separates, I look at what Coach Pitino did with all the talent that we had, is that he was able to get all of us to buy in. And that's always a tough thing when you have guys that are pursuing the NBA, guys that are getting ready to graduate, young players that coming in as McDonald's All-American. But what you do is, it's your work ethic, it's practice. Everyday practice was a dogfight. So you need those kind of practices to prepare you for the tougher games during the course of the season, get into the NCAA tournament, Elite Eight, Final Four, potentially championship game, and then to get drafted and go play with the 450 best players in the world. It's competitive. And although people say they want that smoke, a lot of guys don't want that. A lot of guys don't want to work hard. When you come to Kentucky, you be like, oh man, like I said earlier, this dude, he's good. He's a sophomore, junior. He's been in a weight program. So you start seeing how good players really are when you come and everybody kind of look like you. Everybody have a game like you. Mm-hmm. And now your game is not superior like it once was in high school. So but everybody has to go from a starting point to getting to the level of when you're competing, you're able to sustain that on a nightly basis. Like every night you come out, you give me your best. And it's hard for younger players to do that, you know, and even as they play these AAU season, I say your body is not conditioned to play 4 or 5 games a weekend. I said, even when I played, like I was so happy. I hated back-to-back games in the NBA. Like it took my body like a full day to recover from playing that hard in a game because the intensity level from practice to game is totally different. And, you know, to see kids compete, I'm like, man, your body's really meant to play 2 hard games a day at tops. When you get into 3 and 4, and then you got to play the next day 2 games, I mean, you got to have bodies. You got to have bodies. And I think that's what allowed us to win so many SEC tournaments, was that we had the bodies to go back to back to back.
Mm-hmm. So I'll be interested to see what Reed does. He'll be a junior this year, be upperclassman, see what he does these next 2 years with his team there at North Laurel. We coming at y'all on May the 4th. So man, I gotta ask you, were you a big Star Wars guy? May the Force be with you, May the 4th be with you. Were you into all that Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings?
No, man, I didn't. I never really got caught up in it, man. Maybe I was playing too much basketball, you know, to get caught up in sci-fi. I always, you know, I would see commercials and, you know, I'm like, oh, Star Wars is cool. To be honest with you, Vinny, I don't think I ever watched Star Wars. I mean, I was kind of like a different dude. Like, I'm gonna tell you what I like. I like Dukes of Hazzard. Like that was stuff like Three's Company, Sanford and Son, Good Time, The Jefferson, Cosby. Like I watched those shows. You know, when it came down to Star Wars, I'm like, man, that's not real. Nobody's gonna be in space doing all the stuff they're doing. So really, it was hard for me to buy into it. I'm like, it's not realistic, you know. But I looked at the shows. You know, when I think about funny shows, man, to this day, you know, every once in a while, a Sanford and Son episode, man, I catch one and I'll send it to all my friends and watch Sanford and Son. So we know about Grady Bubba, Skillet, Leroy, I was Rollo, Esther, you know, so, but I mean, it was just so funny how Red Fox, and it's funny because I got to go back. Someone was telling me the writers of Sanford and Son were white guys. I might have to check that to make sure. I said, "Are you serious?" I said, "That cannot be." He was like, "Yeah, man. I think the writers for Sanford and Son were white guys." I said, "Well, how do they know all this stuff about black people?" Yeah. But Star Wars, no. Star Wars was no, man. I couldn't get caught up in it.
Did you have a lot of techie teammates at UK or in the NBA that were into that?
No, you know what? I think guys were doing, you know, if I look at it, because technology was just coming into play then, you know, just having your cell phone and having a pager. I remember having a Tetris, but I don't remember guys just really, you know, being into Star Wars. I think, you know, we spent so much time playing basketball, man, that you know, it became your life. And when you got a chance to watch stuff, and then I tell kids, you know, even as I go out and speak to them, you know, you still want to be a kid and enjoy life. You know, don't take all the pressure that your parents are putting on you, and you know, have that tension when you go out and play basketball. I say, just be relaxed. Go out. I say, I worked thousands of hours on my game, but also I was a kid. I enjoyed playing arcades. I said, most people don't even know. I got so good. I got really good at like Galaxy, Super Mario Brothers. Gunsmoke was another game I love playing. I'm still trying to find an arcade with Gunsmoke on it now. But I got so good at these arcades, I would take a quarter and play like 2 or 3 hours of one quarter.
Man.
You know, playing this. When I tell you I would get locked in on these games, but when I would go to convenience stores, I would watch people. I would watch guys play because this one guy was really good. And I was like, I would sit there for about an hour and just watch him play. And I'm like, man, I got to learn how to play this game. And also, I got to beat him to the convenience store because he stays on this game for a long time. You know, so really it's like you sitting there watching him play. And I'm a student. I'm sitting there watching him play for about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. So I'm learning these stages. Okay, if I ever get there, I know what to do. So I'm just really watching him. I'm playing him, replaying the back of my mind, you know, as I'm walking away, as I'm coming back to the convenience store. So that kind of really taught me how to remember plays and be He one of those guys that, like even to this day, I still remember plays from certain teams I played with, but I became a student. And to really try to get the younger generation to buy into watching games and not highlights, I say, you learn so much by watching a game. And I say, I come and watch my kids in my basketball academy play so I can, when I train them, I know what we're working on. So I kind of have a different mindset of how I choose to work with my players, but also just, trying to be the best I can be as I'm teaching these kids. But, as I'm thinking, Russell Westbrook, what do you think about what he's doing in NBA this year?
It's, with the 2020 the other day, and he's 32, 33 years old.
Yeah.
With Washington, that's a team. I think they're in that 7, 8, 9, 10. They're
right there
range now. So
yeah, they're right there.
Bill's been hurt for a while. They had some other guys go down. So, he's, and you saw, I listened to the guys on Bleav. It's Larry Hughes, Matt Moderno. Early in the year, Russ going up, just kind of laying it up. Like they could tell he wasn't really right. Now he's going back, cocking stuff back like he was, 6, 7 years ago. So he's,
yeah.
And, they kind of get it together at the right time. So you got to give him credit. What do you think about the 7, 8, 9, 10? Because, LeBron said the person come up with it need to be fired. Well, his team is in the 7th seed now.
Yeah.
So
Hey, what they've been doing is they've been slowly sliding down. You know what I'm saying? They went from like maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, and it wasn't the issue about 2 weeks ago. You know what I'm saying? And they were still up there, but as they when they lose a streak, it is something to think. But I think it makes it exciting to me. You know what I'm saying? Like it brings viewers and it keeps viewers excited about a playoff game. Playoff games. You know what I'm saying? Because you watch how Steph Curry, how he's been playing, and you look at LeBron, who came back, and it takes longer for you think an ankle injury. I'm thinking, yeah, but he has so many years on his body, man. It's not your common ankle injury that you're back within 2 or 3 games. I mean, and to come back for him is different because he has to come back and play at a whole nother level, like the level that he left before he got injured. You know what I'm saying? So you can't come back and be rusty because he's LeBron James. You know what I'm saying? We're kind of giving AD a pass for the rust that he had for a couple of games here. And, he finally looked good last night, and I'm like, wow, but it does take you time and gain reps to get back to playing at the level, close to the level that you were at. So even though he came back, he just didn't have he didn't have that lift that he needed, that burst of speed wasn't there anymore, and I'm just like, and he knows that. He knows his body. He knew basically that, okay, I'm not that same dude. Let me go back to the lab. Basically went back to the lab. But why is he going back to the lab? His team's not winning. I mean, when you look, I think Dennis Schroeder's out. They have players that are out right now. And then you still get AD back to maybe 85 to 90%. And then LeBron is back out. They might be in the play-in game, and right now, the way things are looking, anything is possible to happen. If he comes back, he's 100%. Can they get back to the West Conference Final and potentially find? Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's that damn good. You know what I'm saying? But if he can't get back to the LeBron before the injury, it's going to be tough, man. I really do think it is. And I understand where he's coming from. But, I like to play in. I think the teams that are between 7 and 10, they're excited about the play in. It gives them opportunity to still compete. And you know what? Your season's not done. Because so many teams from 9, 10, 11, 12, and on up, them dudes start tanking, man. Them dudes already on vacation. So it keeps players and coaches and fans. It keeps all of us engaged.
That's true. I gotta before we hop off of here, Ben from La Terrain sent me a little tweet. It was NBA 90s old school Twitter, and he sent it to me. I sent it to you because they show clips from the NBA games from the 90s, and it was the other day. It was you at Golden State. A dude tried to reach and picky pocket. You went through the legs, penetrated, hit Danielle Marshall for a dunk, and then it was a turnover. You ran it down. You hit Marshall. So it was a couple of your dimes to Danielle Marshall
Yeah.
over at Golden State on that NBA 90s Twitter account. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, D Mars is my dude, man. We was both of us with Golden State Warriors were averaging double figures coming off the bench. So, we played well together. We didn't have a great team. It wasn't the Golden State that we're seeing, not this year, but in we kind of looked like this Golden State team without Steph. We were fighting, just to be a 500 team. But I really enjoyed playing out in the Bay Area. They had some great fans.
It was still packed.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, man, like Warriors, the Warrior fans and Raider fans, they're true to their teams, man. They are true to Bay Area teams. And even with Sacramento, Sacramento hasn't had the years that they had the 1 year I played there, and then the years after. But another place kind of like Lexington, it's the only show in town. And when it's the only show in town, you get full and all fan support. So I really love being out in the Bay Area. It was just fun and, playing out there. And, like I said, just early in my career, man, just learning the NBA game.
And got to give love to all the UK football players. With a lot of guys that went in the draft this past weekend. Jamin Davis went to the Washington football team. Kelvin Joseph went to my Cowboys. Quentin Bohannon went to my Cowboys. Phil Hoskins went to the Panthers. Landon Young went to the Saints. Drake Jackson signed as a free agent with the Lions. AJ Rose signed with the Vikings. Boogie Watson signed with the Steelers. Brandon Echols signed with the Jets. I think that's got them all. And there might be a couple more free agent signings coming up. But Kentucky with 6 players drafted. We talking about Kentucky football. Teams with 6 or more, it wasn't many. And Kentucky was one of those teams that had 6 or more in the draft. And of course, the SEC had way more draft picks than anybody. So.
A stockpile with the SEC, man. And we don't even want to. And we don't want to start with Alabama. What they do in the first, what they just do in the first round, man, is remarkable. But but it lets you know where Kentucky football, where it's at right now. Now when you start having draft picks, especially first round draft picks, now you can go out and that's always going to be a great recruiting pitch, is that we're putting guys in the NFL now, and plus you're playing against NFL players. When you play in the SEC conference, if you get a chance to make it to the NFL and play on Sundays, you're going to see some of them same guys. When you play Alabama, you're going to either play against those guys or you're going to be watching them guys on TV. Mm-hmm. And that's just how it is, I'm just thinking man, but with Nick Saban, it's a machine in Alabama, how he recruits and develop, but also we talked in previous podcasts, when you can keep 5-star players for 3 years, you know how good Kentucky would be if they were able to keep guys for 3 years.
Yeah.
Just imagine where we would be if we were to, guys couldn't leave. You can't go to the NBA until after your junior season. What? Are you serious? But you know what? It would also, the college game would look totally different. And I think we were recognized, and I think the NBA would gain even more fans, because when you follow someone for 3 years of their collegiate career, you want to see those players going to be successful. But when I only see you for a year, it's the next player. You're forgotten that fast. But when you spend 3 years on my TV, I want to see where you're at, what team you're playing for, and I know it's not going to ever happen again. I think, what's going to happen now, we're looking at the 2 different leagues, the overtime elite league that's going to start up with 16 to 18-year-old kids and paying them money, is we're going to lose some of these players anyway. Mm-hmm. So now we got to find something. And I think that's where the NCAA committee needs to get with some former players and kind of come up with a solution that's best for everyone. Because I hate to see kids that probably aren't ready for the NBA, but when you have $100,000 out there and you telling me that, okay, you're playing to get to a certain level and that money's available, most kids and parents, they're going to make that decision. Hey, we need that money right now. But also, I think it needs to be tied into, if you don't make it to, the G League, NBA, that money needs to be going, some of that money needs to be going to you being, if you can't be a student athlete, you sure in the hell can be a student. So put money towards those guys who don't make it, if they want to go to college. And I think they might have something like that planned. I'm going to do some research and kind of find out, what's the outcome if guys don't make it.
Absolutely. mentioned Ben from La Terrain. I talk about Dave, man. Look, every way to accessorize your wrist, they own it. You've been with them for a long time. The Red Crest, the Voyager, the 25th anniversary commemorative watch, laterrain.com. Those guys got you no matter what you want. la-terrain.com. Dave and Ben consistently bringing the fire when it comes to timepieces.
And it will keep coming. You know, they always have something up their sleeves or something on their wrist that they're going to sell to the public. And you know, I think when you follow La Terrain, you know, you'll see, like I said, the cool timepieces, not crazy expensive, but they have great value with them. And that's the quality of the watch and just the thought behind it. Because you have a nice timepiece. And I always say that you could, a nice timepiece, you can rock casual, suit, and you can even, you know, just have it on the court, you know, as a coach, you know, because timepieces do stand out. And that's something that La Terrain has definitely spent a lot of time doing, is making sure it's the right timepiece for all, you know, for different men of different businesses. And you know, once they keep doing that, we're going to keep promoting them, and they're going to keep putting out those hot fire pieces.
That's it. We appreciate them sponsoring podcast. Appreciate everybody listening. Y'all subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, at Bleav.com, at Bleav Podcast on Twitter. Follow at Bleav in Kentucky on all the different social media platforms. And join TD and I next week on another episode of Bleav in Kentucky, presented by Bet Online.
Deuces.
Yo.